Hi guys, myself I am a Pamanar. I am a CSE department. Today the topic is that we have covered type 1 error, type 1 error rate, type 2 error, type 2 error rate, error in statistical decisions makes difference between type 1 and type 2, reducing type 1 error, reducing type 2 error. Introduction. In the context of testing of hypothesis, there are the basically two types of error we type 1 error, type 2 error. Type I error false positive. The text result says you have the coronavirus, that we can actually do not. Type 2 error false negative, that false that text result says you do not have coronavirus, but you actually do. Type I error. A type I error, also error, has a error of the first kind, occurs when the null hypothesis HO is true, but it's reject. A type I error may be compared with a so false positive. A type 1 error occurs when we believe a falsehood. The rate of the type 1 error is called as zero. Size of text of denoted by the Greek letter A, alpha. It's usually equal a significance level of the test. If type I error is fixed at 5%, it means that there is above in 100 that we will reject HO when HO is true. Example: statistical significance and type I error. In your clinical student, you compare the symptoms of patients who receive that new drugs interventions or a control determined using a test you object of p value of 0.5. This p value is lower than your alpha of 0.5, so you can consider your results satisfactorily signification and rejection that null hypothesis. However, the p-value means that there is a 3.5 percentage chance that your results occurring if the null hypothesis is true. Therefore, there is still a risk of making a type I error. Type I error rate. The null hypothesis distributions curve uh, below shows that probability of obtaining all possible results if the student were repeated with new sample and the new hypotheses were true in the populations at the tail and that shade area representing alpha. It's also called as critical regions. It satisfied. If your results falls in critical regions of this curve, they are considerably satisfactorily significant and the null hypothesis is rejected. However, this is false positive conclusion because that null hypothesis is actually true. Is this false? Type 2 error. Type 2 error, also known as an error of the second kind, occurs when the null hypothesis is false, but error usually failed in be rejected. Type 2 error mean accepting the hypothesis which should have been rejected. A type 2 error may be the compares with the slow called false negative. A type 2 error is the committed when we failed a to believed in true. A type 2 error occurs when one rejects the alternative hypothesis failed in rejection that null hypothesis. When the alternative hypothesis is true, rate of the rate of type of error is denoted by the Greek letter beta in the power of the test, which equal 1 beta. Example: statistically power and type 2 error. When the preparing your clinical students, you are completed a power analysis in the determining that with you sample size, you have an 80% chance of determining an effective size of 2% or create its effects sites of 20% mean that is drugs introductive that reduce of pyrosis of 20% more that can control determine. A types of 2 may occur if your effect that smaller than size. A small effect is the unlikely it decided in your studying that including that statistical power is determining by 0 size of the effect. I agree effect are more easily dedicated. Measurement error, syndicately and random error. It's recorded that reduce power. Sample size, larger sample reduce sampling error and increasing power. Significance level, increasing that significance level increase power. 2. Indirectly reduce the risk of the type 2 error. You can increasing the sample size of the significance level. Type 2 error rate that alternative hypothesis distributions cover below shows that probability of the obtaining all possible results if you study we are repeating with the new sample and the alternative hypothesis we are true in the pollution. The type 2 error that in the beta representing by the shade area on the left side is the remaining area under the curve represents statistically power which 1 beta. Increasing the statistical power of your test directly decreases the risk of making a type 2 error. Error is statistical decision make. Using a hypothesis testings, you can make decisions about whether a data bytes is reduced your researches of predictions of null of the alternative hypothesis. Hypothesis textings starts with the assumptions of on the difference between group or non-relations between variables in the populations. It is the full hypothesis. It's also pairs with as alternative hypothesis, which is your research predictions of that actually difference between group or a true relationship between variables. In the tabular form, 2 errors can be represented as follows: reject full hypothesis. Full hypothesis HO is true, full hypothesis is false. Type I error false positive, correct outcome true positive. Fail to reject null hypothesis, correct output true negative. Type 2 error false negative. Example: type 1 and type 2 errors. A type I error happens when the gets false. A positive error is the constitutive drugs of the negative is systematic does not improve that could be has been raised as randomly for focus of measurement error. Type of 2 error has happened when the get of false negative results. You can considerably drugs of introductions of the simultaneously actually it is you can study with have the mixed band key indirectly of improvement of the alternative and any improvement or to a factors of insight. Hypothesis testing. In there is a diagnosis the value of distances of the choice of two maximums is type 1 is varying increasing types of Union's voice. What are the difference between the one error and two error? One error, two error. A type 1 error is satisfied calls has the rejections of the null hypothesis which can faculty. Type 2 error. A type 2 of error is satisfactory does not give saves enough to invent it as a rejection of null hypothesis given that the null hypothesis should be a faculty. Reducing type 1 error. Representative testing is useful the increasing the level of confidence which is turns reduce type 1 error. The chances of the making a type 1 error are reduced by the increasing the level of the confidence. Reducing type 2 error. Descriptive testing is used to the better describes that the test conditions of the expectance creative which is in turn reduced type 1 2 error is the increasing the number of the times we reject the null hypothesis which is the resulting increase that number of type 1 error rejected HOT is true. Thank you.